Yeah.
run away when you're reading that long profile, but alhamdulillah, life has been kind to me.
Right. And I forgot to mention the main thing is that you're one of my very close friends. So if I can take
We
credit.
go back a very long time, Najma, a very long time.
Yes, and I've taken inspiration from you. That's why I mentioned that, Rihanna. And it's so good that we can actually share some of your knowledge, experiences, and of course, just profile and honor your life as a community activist with so many more people whom I'm sure you've already touched in some way or another. So where did it all start, Rihanna?
Sure. Najma started a long time ago in Indonesia, is where I grew up, did my primary school, secondary school, public schools, inlands, and then had my first teaching post, in fact, at Nurul Islam Girls' School after I completed my BA education at Wits University. A really wonderful opportunity to work with the likes of Ahmed Vauda, who was the principal at the time, Dr. Mamoniat, who was on the board and the founder of Nurul Islam Girls. And that was an inspiring experience. But even before that, Najma, my dad played cricket for Crescent's Cricket Club,
Right?
and I think was very, very much influenced by not that he set out to influence anyone. I think Dr. Abu Bakr Azbat, Uncle Hurley, as we popularly knew him,
Sure.
um, just showed up on the cricket grounds in a way that inspired everything from his consciousness around water and water conservation way back in the 80s, his insistence on young people understanding gender issues and the need for young men to get up and help at the cricket grounds. And then,
Mm,
of course, just being completely inspired by his example of service to community. And I think in many ways, it was only later in my life that I realized the impact that Uncle Hurley, his life, his assassination, had on me. And so will always be grateful for those days at the tech grounds. No shade, no
correct.
amenities, but
I remember
amazing
it. Yes.
beings that we met.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you've paid tribute in some way to the late Dr. Abu Bakr Azvat. Still, also all of us very inspired by his sacrifice and, of course, the life he led as an activist in the health sector, but also within the community. So, but then you're an educator, and how did that translate into what you were passionate about?
So Najma, in fact, I started teaching at Nurul Islam Girls in the early 90s, and it was after Uncle Hurley had been killed. And one of the fond memories I have of my stint at Nurul Islam Girls was actually inviting Auntie Zora Azbat
Uh huh.
uh, to come and speak to the girls about who Uncle Hurley was. And it was fascinating because many of them kind of lived in the same neighborhood that Uncle Hurley came from, that the Azvat family lived in. But many of them had not heard of this remarkable South African, the sacrifices he had made. And so I think one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed in my stint in teaching, short as it was being able to thread together different parts of my life and bring that to the learners I was working with. Later
Mm-hmm.
on, I would go on to teach at the Johannesburg Secondary School and then took young kids from Johannesburg Secondary School to Thembelihle Informal Settlement, some
Mm-hmm.
of whose families had moved out of Lens because of the fact that the informal settlement was kind of on their doorstep. And I remember a young learner by the name of Yusuf Sidat um, who said, Miss, we left this area because we didn't feel safe. But walking in this informal settlement, and just talking to people makes me feel incredibly human. So I had this wonderful experience then, both at Nurul Islam Girls and at Johannesburg Secondary, of really creating the space. I was teaching English and history, Najma, and of course, those are subjects that give you a lot of space for creativity and to give
Right.
young people the opportunity to find themselves. But teaching is an interesting profession.
Mm-hmm.
You are kind of tending and nurturing other people's children, but doesn't create the space. And I was a young mother at the time. wanting to, well, I was pregnant, and, with many of us women on the staff at the time, wanting to stay in the profession, but also wanting to tend our own young children, be able to breastfeed them, and so forth. And the profession doesn't create the space for that. So, kind of late 1994, I resigned from teaching, and the intention was, to raise my child, who was due in December, born in December 94. And then that was just post the first elections, the first democratic elections. And I had the opportunity to apply to be the parliamentary constituency officer administrator at the newly founded PCO in Lenasia.
Right.
The MPs were amazing. I served under Ismail Vadi and Lalu Chiba, Uncle Kathy, and they were like, no, you can bring baby with you. We're in Cape Town. You can feed baby at the office. You can have Adil with you at the office. And that was an amazing experience, Najma. I kind of
Can
did that
imagine. Yes.
for about a year.
Yeah.
And then we moved from Lenasia, obviously wanting to be closer to the CBD and so forth. So that ended that period. But that was a very formative period in getting me to understand what public service could look like. And I think given everything that's happening in our country at the moment, we forget the amazing examples we had of elected representatives and public servants who were specifically committed to serving the communities who had elected them. And so I feel very blessed
Absolutely.
to have that opportunity.
Right. And also the people you mentioned, they were such great leaders, and also, like you say, they served with passion and dedication and sincerity. So I'm sure you've drawn a lot from them in terms of moving forward with what you feel passionate about going forward. I mean, your career this then skyrockets in different directions, but there's one, common string there, and that is that you all your passion for serving and uplifting and always making a difference. So whether it was those days when we were on community radio stations going back so many years, when that was a small little humble way of also contributing, but it was a big thing in the way you managed to reach people. And at the time, Rehana, you had a children's show, you know and that really talks speaks to how diverse you can be in terms of where you fit in.
So, Najma, that was a beautiful time, 1996, I think, when we met at what was then the Voice radio station in Queens Road in Mayfair. And yes, I hosted a program called Our Treasure Chest.
Right.
It was a lovely experience, not just kind of being on air and talking to young children, but also the sense of community, I think, that we all
Absolutely.
experienced at The Voice, the mass iftars that we did together, the outreach that we did. We had a market of treasures for the kids, and we had our treasure club. Sharona Hassam, I remember I had taught Sharona at Johannesburg Secondary School. Sharona, of course, is now the spokesperson at Wits University.
Right.
But Sharona was one of the volunteers who helped to conceive of our treasure club. And we had this little club going for kids. And it was just such an amazing time where, really the sense of building community and the possibility to connect across communities that apartheid had so deliberately kept apart. And so, I remember those mass iftars kind of roving from Rivoli to Florida to Mayfair to Lens.
Correct.
And just the opportunity to traverse different parts of our city and our country, which was a phenomenal experience. And then in that same period, Najma, really got involved in setting up the ANC Helen Joseph branch in Ward 69 of Johannesburg, got involved sorry,
Hmm.
in my children's school governing body and community policing forum.
Okay.
So the
What
voice
what will
is
yeah, what we'll do, Rehana, is we in time for an ad break, so you can catch your breath there, but and get more water. All right.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using Tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib black seed. You can find Tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
South Africa, are you ready? Penny Appeal South Africa is proud to announce, for the first time in South Africa, For Good Tour featuring Saeed, Rehan Karim, Muad and friends coming to your city in November 2022.
I'm grateful for every single thing you've given me.
Cape Town, 19th of November. Johannesburg, 20th of November. Durban, 26th of November. Get your tickets via Quicket while seats are available. Proceeds in aid of Children of the World Project. Contact 031 1100 573 or email info@pennyappeal.org.za. See you there. For Good Tour, brought to you by Penny Appeal South Africa.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists, with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
Welcome back. On this hour, we are honoring the diverse sides to community activist and founder of the Barefoot Facilitator Rehana Moosajee, as she highlights her life as an educator, activist, and local government member. Before the break, Rehana, you mentioned, getting involved in more of a, political role, as it were.
Najma, sorry about that. Too many nuts before this interview, clearly. So Najma, prior to the political realm was really community activism. So I was the chairperson of the school governing body at Hesperus Primary School, where my kids were attending. Was also a member of the Community Policing Forum. And then in 2000, went back to teaching at E.P. Bowman Primary and was approached by the ANC to stand as a proportional representation councillor. I must be honest, I had very little idea of what a councillor does, what council is about. It was an amazing learning curve. Once again, meeting phenomenal people, working with Mayor Masondo, meeting people like Prema Naidu, Auntie Rihanna Adam, and really just this opportunity to learn at the feet of people who had been in the struggle and had really, earned their space in council. And then Najma contested the ward where I live, Ward 69, in 2006. we were very sure that we were winning this ward, and then lost, actually, because we lost one voting district by such a massive margin that I had lost the ward. But the ANC had given me the opportunity to both contest the ward and be on the proportional representation list. And so I had almost decided that if I lose the ward, I was going to call it a day with politics. But then Mayor Masondo called me in March of 2006 and appointed me to head the portfolio transport, which came as a massive surprise. So I was now the
I
member of
can
the mayoral
imagine. Committee,
uh,
yes.
for transport. And this was in the run up to the World Cup. This was 4 years before the country, well, 3 years before the country was going to host Confederations Cup, and 4 years before we would host the World Cup. And Mayor Masondo was very clear. He wanted to use this opportunity to leave legacy for the citizens of Johannesburg that had nothing to really do with the World Cup, that we would use the pressure of hosting this major global event. And so we planted 200,000 trees in the south of Joburg. Hostels were upgraded to family units. Rivers were rehabilitated. And of course, in transport, the legacy project was the Rea Vaya Bus Rapid Transit project. A very difficult project to lead, Najma, obviously,
I can
because
imagine. Yeah.
it required a massive transformation for the minibus taxi industry. In fact, that 12-year contract is now coming to an end. And yeah, I think, all of that was an incredibly difficult period. Lives were lost, people were assassinated. And yeah, it was, really through the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I was able to come through that period, despite attacks on my VIP protector, who was shot at 2 o'clock in the morning outside our home. But it was, again, an incredible learning experience and a wonderful opportunity for me to really be able to learn about things I had no knowledge of.
Rehana, you speak lightly of this experience or this time in your career, but this was something you developed from scratch and delivered Africa's first full bus, bus rapid transport, which is of course what we know as Rea Vaya now. So in that time, which areas of this particular portfolio that you filled was most challenging and which was most rewarding?
So, Najma, firstly, let me say that it was an incredible team. I just had the good fortune or the bad fortune, I'm not sure, to have to politically lead that team. But Bob Stanway, who was the executive director at the time, and that entire department, and the kind of effort that people put in as public servants in that period, I think the most challenging part, but also the most rewarding part of that assignment and period of my life was to work with the minibus taxi industry and envisage a transformation of probably the best example of self-made, broad-based Black economic empowerment in our country. And who was saying, look, rail gets subsidy, bus gets subsidy, minibus taxi receives no subsidy from government except for the taxi recap program. And this was an opportunity to then work with industry leaders and say, is there a possibility that you can embrace massive change, but come into the mainstream provision of public transport? And, it entailed study tours, it entailed workshops on change management, it entailed endless and endless hours of very difficult conversation. It entailed attending funerals of people who were assassinated. It entailed visiting homes of people who'd had their homes petrol bombed because they've signed up to drive those buses. It entailed export credit agency roadshows, to 3 countries in 1 week, to try to raise funding to purchase buses. It was a steep learning curve, Najma, but it was ultimately, I think, the drive was, listening to the everyday stories of people around transport, the cost of transport, the
Yes.
challenges that come with unsafe transport, women in particular, people with disabilities, and what they go through to access public transport. And really, this opportunity, this window of an opportunity that we had to begin to showcase a different standard of transport in our country. And of course, Ria Vaya was the first bus rapid transit system, but that went on, to spread to my city in Cape Town, to Go George in George, to Arayeng in Tshwane, to Harambee in Ekurhuleni, to Yarona, more recently launched in Rustenburg. And it's been interesting, Najma, because there have been many, many naysayers about BRT projects in this country. But, I use the bus myself often. And I think when you see full buses, when you see people in wheelchairs using those buses, when you see young children getting onto those buses, there's a sense of what a dignified public transport system could look like. And I think I've been particularly sad at the slowing down of that project. So, phase 1A was conceived of and approved by council November 2006 and was launched by August 2009, a few months after the Confederations Cup, because of some of the political interference that had happened through in that project. And then expanded in 2010, and then phase 1B launched after I had left in October 2013. And it's now 11 years later. And phase 1C, which is supposed to be a really important corridor that is meant to link the inner city of Johannesburg to Alexandra and Sandton, stations have been built, but subsequent administrations, both DA-led, ANC-led, coalition-led, have all failed to deliver the next segment of this project. And that for me has been particularly sad, just seeing this important intervention slowing down. I think, Najma, there have also been questions when we first presented the plans for Ria Vaya BRT. It was meant to come to Lenasia, for example. It was meant to service communities of Orange Farm, Vlakfontein, Lehigh. That hasn't happened either. And it looks like the city has now kind of chosen to move the intervention much further north, citing the availability of rail transport in the south. But, Ria Vaya was never meant to be a standalone project. It was always meant to be part of an integrated public transport network. And I think the slowing down of the impact of that, and I mean, I've just seen this morning on Twitter, for example, people are saying we should brace ourselves for fuel shedding now.
Right.
When that happens, and if that happens, and people don't have access to private car usage, it's going to be public transport that is going to be critical in keeping the economy moving. And I sometimes think that, just the way in which public transport has been sidelined in this country, because even though 2/3 of private homes or private people don't have access to a private car, private car users have such a strong voice in society that the voices of public transport users are drowned out in public discourse. And I sometimes feel very sad about kind of the slowing down of all of this.
I can imagine what that feels like, because also it's the internal conflicts that have, contributed to the slowing down of this project, so to speak. When you speak of the resistance you had and the threats and, just the political interference. Unfortunately, the public then loses out, because we do, we should actually be embarrassed that up to now we don't have an efficient transport system in today's day and age. I mean, personally, how often do we actually use the public transport? Not because we can't, it's accessible, but it's not efficient. It's not safe. It's not, so there are so many things that we can be disappointed about. And I think for you sitting in that position that you were in 11 years ago, and having built the dream, so to speak, and then not seeing the fruits of it, as it were. Although when you watch, like you said, you do see people using the system, etc. But I think it then all goes back to what we're all complaining about as South Africans now. It is the deterioration, and I hate to focus on something as negative as that. Um, Given that it's a Monday morning, but I think we need to face the reality. And I think you can, of course, comment on that because you've been right in the heart of where everything, well, I suppose the engine of it all. We'll get Rehana to answer that question right after this ad break.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Did you know a sponsored water well and borehole allows children to go back to school, empowers communities, and is a means of sadaqah jariyah? There are many villages in Africa and Afghanistan that are in need of water wells and boreholes. Sponsor a water well in Africa at 14,500 rand, or a borehole in Africa and Afghanistan at 49,500 rand. Call Africa Muslims Agency on 011 834 8685 or donate at Africa Muslims Agency. .co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, inspiring the spirit of giving.
Injuran Boys College is an independent boarding and day school situated on the N1 highway in Polokwane in a picture-cure and tranquil farm-style setting. We encourage intellectual and emotional development through a holistic learning environment. We follow the NCS CAPS curriculum and house boys from grade 5 to 11. We also have a boarding facilities. Engineering College is a safe haven and a home away from home. We focus on building morals, ethics, and grooming our boys to become responsible citizens. We offer the opportunity to be awarded 75% sponsorship of boarding fees as well as discounts. It is registered with the Department of Education and Omalusi accredited. Our other schools include girls' boarding school in Zaneni and a boys' school in Palawora. For more information, contact us on 082 491 4043 or 078 452 6264. Follow us on Facebook or email us on polokwane@endurancecolleges.co.za.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Devastating floods in Pakistan have washed away villages, claimed the lives of more than 1,000 people, damaged nearly 1 million homes, and left over 33 million people in desperate need of help. As the catastrophe unfolds, Islamic Relief is on the ground, reaching people with life-saving aid. Our team are working tirelessly to deliver food and shelter. Your support is urgently needed now to help save more lives. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
We're with Rehana Moosajee in our profile interview. Rehana, we've got Donovan Williams that commented on Facebook. He says, the transport values of Ria Vaya still govern my life. Nice to hear you again, MMC. And then he's asked me to ask about these transport values.
So Donovan knows me very well, Najma, because I was going to come to the point that that Riavaya was the big project, but my pet project, my favorite one actually was transport values. Donovan was actually the strategic support advisor in my office and supported through some really difficult times. Donovan, really good to hear from you and know that you're tuning into Salam Media today. Najma, so, and I think it's interesting, whilst we call them transport values, if we actually have that conversation now about many, many of the challenges that are facing us, it really is a values vacuum. We had been through a very long and consultative process in the city of Joburg, both internally and with our external stakeholders, to say what are the values that should underpin our transport system. And after a very long process and period of collecting all of these inputs, we came up with 5 values: accountability, cooperation, honesty, respect, and Ubuntu. But of course, South Africa has 11 languages. And something like accountability, even in English, is so difficult to define, Najma. So again, we went through a process with a really interesting company called Symbology, where we co-created with our stakeholders symbols for each of these values. So the symbol, for example, for honesty was simply a mirror. And it actually came up from, you know, when people kind of look in the mirror and then see a police vehicle approaching, they then kind of pull their seatbelt on or, then slow down the car. And it was just like, look in the mirror. Are you the one that's giving the bribe to a Metro Police official? Or respect, which was a very particularly powerful symbol. One of my favorites from the series actually was the city skyline, Joburg skyline, in a heart, and the heart being held in a pair of hands. And this idea that, you hold somebody's heart, and I hold my city close to my heart, and I respect my city, and the way in which I use the transport system, should demonstrate that respect. It was about cooperation between cyclists and pedestrians and public transport users. And, it had so many iterations. We also had a lovely mascot called Pedestrian Angel. That would go to schools and kind of teach these transport values. And, it struck me once, Najma, when I was invited to a little Montessori school in Auckland Park with Pedestrian Angel. It struck me that middle to upper class children in South Africa don't have the basic life skill of how to cross a road safely. Because think about it. In many, many middle to upper class homes, the car is driven right into the yard in a garage. Kid is put into the car, dropped off at daycare or the school on the side of the entrance where there's no street to be crossed, gets to a mall, dropped off as close as possible to the mall entrance door. And children don't have the basic life skill of how to safely cross a road. One of the other things about the portfolio, Najma, and Donovan would remember this as well, was just we obviously were also responsible, together with our colleagues in the Metro Police Department, for issues of road safety. And we attended one too many funerals of young kids, all the way from Lens through to Ivory Park, who had been run over by other kids on quad bikes, by adults who were speeding. Lives that should not have been lost in that crass way. And, I don't think we count as society the cost of road crashes. Forget the emotional cost, because we all know that. Najma, and I think in your family, you've had the experience of that. There's a massive emotional cost, but there's also an economic cost. There's a cost to the economy for every road crash that wipes out a breadwinner, that wipes out a person critical to a business, critical to society. And we've come to just accept road crashes and road crash statistics and the numbers that come with them as something that we should actually tolerate. as opposed to saying, how do we get to 0 fatalities on our roads? What will it take?
Yeah, right. So, Rehana, in terms of, serving in that position for the time period that you did, were you, in the heart of your project, were you um, motivated to do more, or was there any point where you felt, I don't know if I can actually withstand all of the challenges?
Maybe you were a fly on the wall somewhere, because I arrived at Mayor Masondo's office one morning, I think in 2007, sobbing, absolutely sobbing, tears flowing down my cheeks. And I was like, Mr. Mayor, I cannot do this anymore. Please release me from the position. And it was not, it was not the difficulty with the taxi industry. It was not the fact that at some point the project had 26 different work streams. It was none of that, Najma. It was actually an ANC meeting. I was also a member of the Regional Executive Committee of the ANC in Johannesburg. And it was an ANC meeting that I had attended the night before. So I don't know if you recollect this far back, Najma, but at a point, there was also an announcement by the Gauteng provincial government that there was going to be a monorail project in Johannesburg.
Yes.
And that monorail project was envisaged to happen on exactly the same route that Rea Vaya was going to happen. In fact, this monorail project was supposed to be a partnership with the Malaysians. And it was not a transport project at all. It was actually a land deal, and significant parcels of land in our city were going to be handed over to a Malaysian consortium. And the proponents of this monorail project at the time, it was the late MEC Ignatius Jacobs, who was the MEC for transport in Gauteng province. I was the MMC in the city. We were both asked to come to the Regional Executive Committee and explain our respective projects and why there was this contestation between them. Ignatius didn't arrive. He sent one of his officials to do a presentation, and I did the presentation on Rea Vaya, and very kind of naive at the time in my understanding of politics, Najma. And as I was packing up my laptop, so I had also explained that within the next week or something, we were leaving for a second study tour. We had done an initial study tour to Bogota in 2006, and we had been requested by the minibus taxi industry to do a second study tour so they could take more of their members to better understand what it was that the city was proposing. And in the session, I had said that we were going to leave for the study tour in the next week or something. And I was busy packing up my laptop, and there was this little balcony outside the ANC regional office where the smokers would go. And so the regional treasurer and the regional secretary at the time were standing on the balcony and didn't know that I was still in the room packing up my laptop. And the one said to the other, and one of whom was a very prominent member of parliament, by the way, the one said to the other, so why didn't you just tell her that they can't go and that they should stop this project? And that was what got me to Mayor Masondo's office the next morning, sobbing, because I was like, Mr. Mayor, they call themselves comrades, but like, this is the kind of thing they're saying, behind your back. And I was so naive, Najma, that I really believed that if a project was for the good of the community, it would automatically get the backing it required. At the time, I didn't understand, and maybe it was my naivety that actually enabled me to do the work I did, because I wasn't constantly looking over my back at my own comrades, not realizing that they actually did not want to see this project succeed. And so that was one of those difficult moments, Najma. And then another one was actually when I took the decision to resign, because I voluntarily resigned from the city of Johannesburg at the end of February 2013. And that was a very difficult decision. I cashed in my pension fund, had no idea where the next cent was coming from in March 2013, and left a portfolio and a city that I was born in, I was dedicated to. But Donovan asked the question about values, and Donovan by that time had left my office. But Sandy Perry, who was at my office, helped me to come to a realization that my values and the values of the organization that I was supposedly serving and representing no longer fitted each other. And it was really my inability as the political head to hold the administration accountable, the delays that were being experienced on Rea Vaya Phase 1B, and I was getting onto the media and I could spin it, Najma. I could explain away why those delays were happening. But in my conscience, I knew that it was actually political, that Phase 1B of Rea Vaya was not being delivered to the community of Johannesburg. In my official resignation letter, I had cited personal reasons, but I think over a period of time, I've grown enough courage to actually say, no, it was the politics of the ANC. It was poor leadership in the city of Johannesburg. It was people saying one thing publicly and doing another thing privately that got me to a point that said, I can no longer be a part of this. And with great difficulty, chose to leave the city of Johannesburg.
Well, that was a very brave decision, but at the end of the day, it was for your personal well-being. And, you know, I suppose from then on, after the break, we find out about the Barefoot Facilitator.
Would love to tell you more about that.
Yep.
Joining hands, Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Online schooling? Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
Decades of war, devastating drought, and economic collapse have pushed the Afghan people to the edge of survival. 24 million need life-saving aid, and 5 million children are knocking on famine's door. The world cannot just watch as this terrible crisis unfolds. With your support, the Al-Imdad Foundation is delivering emergency relief to the Afghan people. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
With so many investment options today, it's only natural that you might feel a little confused which route to take. Should I buy shares or should I invest in gold bullion? Randery Jewelers now brings you the Zahab coin, an alternative to the Kruger Rand. The Zahab coin, a solid wealth protector in its purest form of 24-karat gold, is the safest way to protect your wealth. So don't just sit there and watch your paper money depreciate. Change to gold. Call Randery Jewelers now at 031 202 4701 or visit www.rjcoin.co.za, situated at 151 Essenwood Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Over 33 million people have been affected by the devastating floods in Pakistan. Homes have been destroyed, crops have been swept away, and roads have been damaged. Families are mourning their loved ones while trying to survive these horrific conditions. Penny Appeal is on the ground now, delivering food, shelter, medical supplies, and water to those in need. You can help save a life by donating today. Visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
You're with Najma Kota on the Mid-Morning Talk. We're speaking to Rehana Moosajee. Rehana, the Barefoot Facilitator. I like the name.
Yeah, Najma, it used to be Rehana Moosajee Consulting. And then for a variety of reasons, including the fact that in 2017, Salim and I had chosen to end a 23-year marriage. I decided it was time to rename the company, and I was facilitating in Pretoria one day in Tshwane, and kicked off my shoes and came home and said to the kids, I'm thinking about the Barefoot Facilitator, and checked the domain, and it was actually available. And so just renamed Rehana Moosajee Consulting, the Barefoot Facilitator. But alhamdulillah, I just love the work I get to do now. I'm able to take my knowledge of public sector that I had through those 13 years in the city of Johannesburg. I'm able to take my education background. I'm able to take the wonderful experiences that life has brought me, Najma. You and I had the amazing opportunity to visit Turkey together on an interfaith, intercultural tour. I have been to the Gross National Happiness in Business Summit in Bhutan. I have been to a Peace of Mind retreat in Rajasthan in India. And I've been able to kind of weave all of that into what the Barefoot Facilitator offers. And alhamdulillah, really, really enjoy the work I do, the clients I work with, and the ability to use a little business to give back in the area where I live.
So what exactly do you do as the Barefoot Facilitator?
So Najma, I focus very much on what's called process facilitation. So a client would be having a workshop, an event, or a meeting. And what I really do is check what are your objectives for the session, and then work with my client to design a much more creative, authentic way to get to the objectives that they have. So we don't do PowerPoints, and we don't do long, boring presentations, and we don't do hierarchy stuff. We break all of those traditional things that happen both in private and public sector, and we get people into authentic conversation. We have fun, we are creative, we get people to splat attack each other, but having really serious conversations. So the methodologies are creative, but we're dealing with really tough issues in fun, lighthearted and creative ways, and really just changing the nature of how people have conversations. So I had a lovely event last week in Limpopo where I was able to use some of my radio experience. A new director had been appointed as the director of planning, and I was able to, without any kind of notification to her, just set up a mock radio interview, and she had to kind of now pretend that she was on Mogalakwena FM and tell a little bit about herself. And you could say, director, kind of do a presentation and tell us about you, but the minute we kind of put her in the hot seat of the radio station, even though it was just a role play, it opened up for her team to get to know her in a different way. And so it's threading all of these threads of my life together, Najma, in offering to my clients. And it's just been a remarkable experience.
It sounds like so much fun, and I think you're using your creativity. That's what's making it more enjoyable for yourself and for the people that you work with. Tell us about your activism, community activism, and particularly the food projects, Slovo Park, etc.
So Najma, I live very close, a 5-minute walk to an informal settlement called Slovo Park between Crosby and Coronationville. I had first started going there. I mean, one of the photographs I found, my daughter Fahima was 2 years old, and we were in the informal settlement. And during COVID, Fahima got married, she moved continents. And when I went back into Slovo and looked at the space and kind of looked at the space in relation to my daughter's life and how much had happened, I was convinced that politics is not going to take Slovo forward. And so through a series of events, and we don't have the time to go through it now, but I can point your listeners to the Barefoot Facilitator website, where they can find a report called Transforming Slovo, which tells the story of the Slovo project. And in fact, I think when we started the project, I was probably on Julie's show on Salam Media, chatting about some of the ideas. Well, we now have in Slovo 10 toilets that have been fixed by community members, none of whom are plumbers, but they repaired and maintain those toilets now and have turned it into a little entrepreneurial venture. So people pay them R2 to use the toilet, and they in turn maintain those toilets and are turning some money from that. JIS has a container in Slovo. We have been able to get Uncle Sonny Morgan from Enology. He has donated a solar system. We now have a solar-powered digital skills hub in an informal settlement where young people can actually learn digital skills right where they live. We have a food garden that we're trying. It was destroyed by hail. Kalnisha Singh from KD Strategies has assisted us to get some additional resources. We have a monthly play in the park. I live across from a park, and we do a monthly play in the park. All donated toys from amazing people who've just said, my kids have outgrown it. And just to see the kids come and enjoy quality toys, puzzles, books, has been phenomenal. So it's work in the making, Najma. It's ongoing. We're learning as we go. We're learning just how complicated community development is, how contested it is, how big egos can be, but also just the outpouring of love and support from people who ask for nothing in return and have just
Wonderful.
so graciously given of themselves.
Where do you get the energy from, Rehana?
Najma, just so grateful to our Creator for all of the opportunities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on me, the people I've met, and it's just the people who step up in the most phenomenal ways. And yeah, just very, very grateful for the way in which life has bequeathed me many gifts of people and opportunities to just keep learning. And as you said, I have tons of fun, and that gives me lots of energy.
Hmm. Well, I think that, we touched on how difficult it was when you were MMC for transport and what you had to deal with. And we spoke about the deterioration and how we feel about it. And then hearing your story here now at the end and where you've come to and what you're doing in terms of contributing, I think this is where it's important to have people like yourself on this program so we can give hope to the country, to the people, that there are these wonderful people like yourself and many that work with you, and a lot of those that we don't even know of that are making these contributions and making such a huge difference in the lives of South Africans. And that, I think, is wonderful to be talking about, to be highlighting as well.
Absolutely, Najma. I think we have a big challenge in South Africa, particularly with mainstream media, where the focus is always on the negativity, where the focus is only on the politicians and what is happening in the political realm. And every day, without fail, I meet amazing people in this country who are doing phenomenal work, both
Definitely.
locally and globally. And just kudos to Salam Media for being willing to showcase alternative narratives. We need so many more of it. There are so
Absolutely.
many people doing amazing work, and let's profile that, because those people are often doing it not for reward, not for financial gain, just because they want to use their lives in service to others.
Mm, excellent. And I know you're also quite active with the breath work and facilitating. So we have very little time left to talk about that, but I think that's fantastic. And I wish I could keep up, but there are ways and means. So let's quickly talk about that, a part
So,
of
that's
your
been the
life.
most recent thing I've just done, hosted by Dr. Ila Manga, who I met through the phenomenal Dr. Zahira Jina, who runs the Josie Books and Blogs Fest. And
Yeah.
Ila ran Umoya Breath Fest in Muldersdrift from, what was it, the 18th to the 22nd of September, where she was working with a phenomenal group of breathwork practitioners. And I had the good fortune of being part of that amazing event and just reminding us that we all have a tool, this breath, and to consciously take each breath and to use the power of breath as transformation. And just listening to Prof. William Gumede and Prof. Kelly Gillespie and Sarah Machette from UCT, and just Lucy Draper Clark, the compassionate activist, who's just launched her book, The Compassionate Activist, hearing the academic angle on this, being able to experience breath work, and just again, one of those blessings of my life, Najma, for which I'm incredibly grateful.
And I want to thank you for involving us in it, because I'm also quite passionate about it. I'm just not as active as you are. So I need to learn. There you go. Rehana's given us a lot of things to think about, a lot of things to be motivated by, and it never stops. That's the whole message here. You know what I see from Rehana's life and what she's described in this under an hour. To make the best of what you have and what you feel passionate about, and how willing she is to keep giving back. And I think that's what I would take inspiration from you, Rehana. It's been
Shukran
an
to you,
absolute
Najma. I
pleasure.
know that if we put you on the other side of the seat, you have many stories to tell too.
That's very kind of you. Jazakallah khair. I hope we can catch up soon again, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I look forward to meeting you, and from on behalf of Salam Media and all of the people that you've impacted so positively in our lives, Jazakallah khair, and enjoy the rest of your day and all the best. May you continue to succeed.
Shukran, Najma, for the opportunity. Thanks to Salam Media and all the best to you, and look forward to hearing and getting an update of what you've been up to recently.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. That was Rehana Moosajee, of course, honoring the diverse sides to community activist and founder of the Barefoot Facilitator. Rehana Moosajee, as she highlights her life as an educator, activist, and local government member. After the break, you can look forward to our next guest, who is Dr. T.K. Harris. He's an author, doctor, neuropsychiatrist, and our topic, family relationships and their connection to your overall well-being. I just want to also mention that unfortunately we cannot host our guest Hafsa Gahir, who was supposed to talk to us about the country of Tanzania, and I was really looking forward to talking to her about the Serengeti. It's one of, I'm sure, yours and definitely my bucket list places to visit. Unfortunately, she's not available. She's taken ill. So we're going to extend our wellness segment to a full hour. Looking forward to being with you. Stay with us.